Welcome back, my Necro Fiends. It's SJB here. Today we're trying to do a deep dive into the Necromancer Tower. This is where we go over all of the calculations, all of the numbers that we possibly can for the Necromancer. This is admittedly a very odd one. I don't want to say it's odd as the Arborean Emissary, but it's odd because it's got a lot of things going for it. It's got a quad attack. It has the curse aspect to it, which is the way that you make skeletons. It also has skeletons randomly popping up, which do stalling, which is very difficult to calculate out. You can't really calculate out stalling and how much it's actually worth to stall a unit, but we can try to calculate how much a skeleton can do as far as damage is concerned. So there's just a lot going on with this tower. Before we get to the actual calculations, though, I just want to mention a couple quick things here. We do have the ability to build up to 4 attacks in a single shot, which is something that I think is often overlooked. Because, you know, it's nice for... it could be like a weird cleanup tower that you build up 4 attacks, you go... do 200 damage all at once to a single unit. That's really, really cool and often overlooked. You only make skeletons when you kill a guy that has the curse on him. If you kill an enemy without the curse on him, he will not turn into a skeleton. You can make skeletons out of these small guys here, who will have 1 to 4 attack with 40 health, or if you kill a big guy, you're going to end up getting a bone golem, which is 6 to 10 attack with 120 health. I would not say that they are just tanks. They actually do, even though it says 1 to 4 damage, I know that I've mentioned them in previous times, like that's like nothing. But they attack really quickly. They actually attack every second, I believe. 60 attacks in a single minute, even if we only do 1 damage per attack. I mean, that's 60 total possible damage that we could do in a minute here. That's not nothing. Like, that's really, really, really not nothing here. But if we have multiple skeletons doing that exact same thing, it can really add up to be like, whoa, that actually makes a lot more damage happen than I thought it would be. Necromancer skeleton damage is actually pretty impressive. So that's probably the biggest thing that I've learned when, like, paying attention to Necromancer. Skeletons don't just block. They don't just sit there and just be a meat shield of some sort. They actually do pretty good amounts of damage. It doesn't say it. It doesn't seem like it. When you have enough skeletons, doing enough stalling, doing enough damage, that actually makes sense here. Either way, let's finally get down to the numbers. So the total cost, we don't need to go over it. You guys know what that is. The average damage. Again, we just look at the damage of the tower here. We can either add them together and divide by 2, or we can just say there's a 60 difference here, so we add 8 or subtract 8. Boom, boom. For the speed, I, again, just want to point this out. I counted. Okay, I don't have the Ironhide data locked up somewhere. I counted the amount of attacks that happened in a minute. I counted 38. So, could there be an error there? Yes, there definitely could, but I'm pretty confident about that. Maybe 39. Just throwing it out there. That leads us to being able to find out the damage per minute that we can have, which in my case is a lot of different numbers here. And lastly, we can get an efficiency. This is basically just the damage per minute divided by the cost, and you get the numbers. So any which way, check this out. The burst damage, bro. That's why we like this thing. Just taking the big bad void blinker down to nothing just like that feels awesome. When we look at these numbers, though, you're actually going to see it's not that good. I mean, again, we just compared to the Royal Archers, and we're like, Royal Archers are about 4. This guy's 2.2. Is he really half as good as the Royal Archer? Oh, snap. Okay. We need to fix this. Let's fudge the numbers. No, I'm just joking. We have to keep in mind, they're skeletons. The skeletons are part of your team. So this is where it gets really funky, and it's more of a guess than a real actual calculation. But we can guesstimate how much extra damage we're doing with the skeletons, or the total possible damage we're doing with the skeletons is. Doesn't need to be 100% accurate, but we can make a quick little guesstimate and say, what are these guys actually doing? So let's go one step deeper. I know we're like 2 stages deep already. We gotta go deeper, just like Inception, bro. Skeleton damage. So I assumed, and this is probably incorrect, that the skeletons will do the exact same amount of damage if you're a first-tier Necromancer or a 4th-tier Necromancer. That could just be completely and utterly wrong. But the skeletons are the same, whether you're a 1st-tier or 4th-tier, so it really shouldn't matter much what they're doing. You probably will make more if you're higher level because you're probably killing more units, but that's not really an actual necessarily big difference, right? Not necessarily a big difference. So any which way, I said all skeletons do 240 damage per minute, and all I did there was I said that we're having 2 skeletons attacking with 2 damage All right, that's 2 skeletons times 2 damage to get the 4 damage times the 60 seconds that exist in a minute, because they attack about once every second. That doesn't include the fact that we've got bone golems here that can do way more damage than that, or that we might be attacking with more than 2 skeletons at the same time. This is only a 2-skeleton play. 2 skeletons, averaging their attacks out. Okay. So, that being said, let's go down to the next section here. The total damage of the tower then would be both the skeleton damage plus the regular attack damage, which would give us an efficiency now of 4.6, 3.5, 2.9, and 3.16. So again, this is a little bit weird and goofy because the numbers are kind of all over the place. And it's because I gave the level 1 Necromancer just the exact same amount of skeleton damage as a level 4, and considering all things considered, look at the tier 1. 228 damage compared to 240 skeleton damage. The skeletons are doing the bulk majority of the damage as a tier 1 Necromancer. Is that true? I don't know. I have not paid attention to the game enough to actually fully answer that question for you, but I would say probably not. Probably not, but I did it anyways, okay? So you can use your own calculations to try to figure that out based on how much damage you think the skeletons are doing. You can easily decide for yourself, how many skeletons do I have? How much are they attacking? If you've got more than 2 skeletons attacking, you're probably doing significantly better than I am. If you have less than 2 skeletons, you're obviously doing a little bit worse. Okay, that's just the best way to understand it. Any which way, these are not great numbers yet. These are still sort of average-ish numbers for a tower, but we cannot take away the fact that we've got so much stalling with this. We cannot overlook the fact that stalling is not an aspect of that tower at all. If we get any grouped attack damage in combination with this much stalling, of course it's going to be a good tower, and a good tower combo with an artillery or with whatever over here. So Necromancer has a lot of things going for him, and that's what makes him somewhat complicated to fully math out. Either which way, this is the numbers. So feel free to enjoy them, not enjoy them, hate them, and think they're wrong, or whatever. That's the numbers. We'll leave the efficiency on the screen here, and we're going to go to the next section here, which is the Rattling Beacon. That's this thing right here. This is the skeleton damage that we're going to be doing with the Necromancer, or the bonus skeleton damage that we're going to be doing with this guy. So first of all, we're allowing ourselves to curse more enemies with Rattling Beacon, which allows us to get more skeletons overall. That is something you just can't overlook. More stalling, more skeletons, more damage. All of those things are great. But this is where things get a little bit weird. The speed per minute actually does go up with this ability, unlike a lot of other abilities in this game. So it goes from only 3 times per minute to 3.75 to 5 times per minute by the time we get to the last 3rd tier ability here. Any which way, just something to note, because we need to talk about this for the uptime eventually. Damage-wise, this is just, again, kind of a made-up number. Like, how much damage are we actually doing with the skeleton? So I was like, well, you know, if we've got 1 bone golem attacking plus 1 regular skeleton attacking, I mean, we're easily doing like 10 damage, right? So, okay, that's what we're going to go with. 10 base damage. Then we're assuming 10 base damage, but per second. Okay, per second that we attack. Any which way, when we get the bonuses here, that's going to be 50% bonus on the Rattling Beacon, 100%, and then 150% for 15, 20, and 25. So that's where those numbers came from. When we finally get to the cost here, it's pretty simple, 120, 120, and 120. Add those all together, which leads us to the total damage. So the total damage is, again, them using that damage, but times 60 for the minute that we're going to be using this thing. But I just want to throw it out there that part of this is the fact that we have to go into the uptime of this one. So I kind of made my own little mini calculation here on uptime. If these totems last for 10 seconds, for example, and their cooldown is reduced to 12 seconds, the uptime is very, very high, like 90% or whatever, 80%, whatever that ends up being. The uptime of this, though, is only 10 seconds for a 20-second cooldown, so it's only 50%. So you can see how this ends up being more meaningful to get up to 2nd and 3rd tier, so we get more uptime for this to do the extra damage, but not only do the extra damage, but to get more skeletons. So that's all just kind of moving parts all together at the same time. Very difficult to math out or calculate in any meaningful way, but it can kind of be done. And I think I did a pretty good job with my total damage here. Just know that there's a lot going into that. And I ended up, not on purpose, creating all these numbers separate from each other, and ended up with the same frickin' number for my efficiency. I was like, that's frickin' ridiculous. 450, 900, and 1350. I thought it was ridiculous. I can't believe I did it. Like, straight up, I can't believe I did it. I did not mean to do that. But we got 3.75 for every single one of these ability upgrades. So what does that mean? It means getting a first tier, second tier, or third tier doesn't really matter all that much for total damage output, but you do get the benefit of the more skeletons aspect, which in my opinion is probably worth it. So, because you get a bonus for getting a second or third tier, it's probably worth it. Go for a second or third tier, but still not bad to go for a first tier. Any which way, all these upgrades are good across the board. But that still does not tell us the full story, because there is one other upgrade that we need to go over here. That is this guy right here, the Death Rider. So the Death Rider has a very long cooldown. It's a 30-second cooldown. That's huge! Mega huge! 30-second cooldown is one of the longest cooldowns in the game, believe it or not. If not the longest cooldown in the game. I'm not entirely sure. So, that's pretty wild. Only 2 per minute. We do 60 damage, 110 damage, and 150 damage based on the level, based on the tier that we're doing here. And we have to use a little bit of our own, well, no, not yet. Next, we can look at the cost, so obviously 200 for each level. Then we use a little bit of our own little math here. How many units are we killing or hitting with these Death Riders? That's really important here. So we're attacking just 1 unit. We did 60 damage. It's like nothing, right? Or 150. It's like, I don't say it's completely useless, but it's not very much. If we're hitting 5 units, that's not a bad deal right there. If we're hitting 5 units, let's go over the math real quick. That would be 600. Oh, we just won the game. Holy crap. Oh my god, we actually beat the entirety of the game here with the Necromancer. That's how long this one was, too. 600, 1100, or 1500. I'm just going to finish this off, by the way. Which ends up being an efficiency of 3, 2.75, and 2.5, which makes it seem like the lower-end guy is going to be better for you, which, again, just sort of makes sense based on the damage we're getting out of him. Oddly enough, though, if we're hitting more than 5 units, like, for example, 8 units per Death Rider, because he goes through the track here, we can do even more damage than that. We can go up to 960, 1760, and 2400, and that would mean that we would easily break over 4 for our efficiency on all 3 of these guys. So, if you're hitting more than 8 units with the Death Rider, it is totally worth it to go for him. If you're hitting less than 8 units, it may not be worth it, and you may be better off going for something else. It's the best way you can understand this guy is the more units to hit, the more efficient he's obviously going to be. So, let's bring you guys all the numbers all together here. What does this mean for the Necromancer? Oh my god, it's so big I can't even fit it on the map. Oh, we're going to have to make it smaller. Okay, hold on. Doing this live, doing it live. There we go. Okay. So what this means, though, is that the regular base attack tower is pretty fair in the 3-ish range. The skeletons are in the 3.75 range. Doesn't really matter which tier you go for. And then the Death Rider is going to be in the 4-ish range if you get 8 or plus units. If not, it's actually going to be less than that. So you need to make sure you're hitting quite a few units to make the Death Rider worthwhile. Even though I believe this is one of the favorite units out of just about anybody in the entire game. Death Rider is cool. It is good. And if you can use it properly, it's freaking great. But you got to hit a lot of guys with it to make it worthwhile. Any which way, if this helped you guys out with the Necromancer at all, I'd really appreciate a like. I'd really appreciate a subscribe. And of course, you guys can have a super duper delicious day.